All right, guys, it is story time. I purchased half of a house, and now I just picked up a check for $155,400. And I figured it's story time. I need to share with you exactly how this all worked, what happened. It wasn't exactly how we had it planned, so let me start at the beginning. So I got a phone call, like we get most of our calls, just from a regular lead. Somebody called in and said they had a house they wanted to sell. Actually, they spoke with my wife, not me. And then as she got into the details, it turned out that they only owned half the house. This is new for me. I've been buying houses for 31 years and I've never come across this situation before. So I actually originally told my wife, tell them sorry, we can't do it. I didn't know anything about it. They were very persistent because they wanted to get something done. So they kept calling back. So then I called my attorney and I said, is it possible to buy half a house? I don't know anything about it. And he told me, yes, you can buy half a house. However, and he told me the process you would have to go through. Basically, there would be three choices. Either I would buy the other person's half from them, I would sell the other person my half, or if neither was agreed to, we would end up going to court and a judge would order the sale. So I proceeded with the purchase and I purchased half the house for $60,000. Now I think we offered like 40 because I really, to be honest, didn't want it. Because I didn't know what this was even involving and I was not excited about it. And so I purchased the half a house for $60,000. Mind you, it's a nice house. It's a Virginia Beach house. It's probably worth, if I had to guess, I would say $360 to $380. And so I got half of it, but what's half worth? Nothing. If you can't rent it, you can't sell it, you can't do anything. So we initially started making contact with the person who owned the other half. Before I get there, let me go back to the seller's motivation. So the reason the seller was motivated to sell, why they wanted to sell and get their money out of their half, is the other half lived in the property and was not amicable, did not want to sell it, did not want to buy their half, didn't want to do anything, and they were sisters. And so the only way to force something would be then to file a lawsuit against her sister, which she did not want to do, right? So this person called us. We ended up purchasing their half. We closed on it. After we closed on it, we tried making contact, letting them know that we are now basically partners. We own half the house, you own half the house. And we didn't get any feedback, no response whatsoever. So then I hired an attorney and the attorney started a process, basically initially just trying to contact them. And then they hired an attorney, so the attorneys were both speaking. She wasn't very amicable, and I'm extremely amicable. Let me tell you, I was open to anything. And finally, they got into talking, her attorney and my attorney got into talking. I even agreed that I would owner finance my half because, again, I'm in the Slowflip business, right? So I'm more about having monthly payments than I am about getting a check. So I even agreed to owner finance my half, to which she turned down. She turned down selling me her half, and eventually she agreed to buy my half. And she signed a contract for it. We had a court date pending. The court got canceled because we were under contract to close. And so now come closing time, she ghosted, disappeared, didn't respond to her lawyer, didn't respond to me, didn't respond to anybody. We actually had the HUD, the settlement, the deeds, everything was done. And her attorney even said, she's not responding and there's nothing I can do. So we had to refile for court. This goes back, I'm telling you, this was a 1.5-year process. A year and a half from the time I initially bought it. I bought it in April of 24. So it's been just under 1.5 years, I guess. So we had to file for court again. We finally get a court date, and this time she shows up. She does not have an attorney with her. She says every attorney was trying to rip her off. The reality is they weren't telling her what she wanted to hear. What she wanted to hear was, why should he have half the house? He don't live here, whatever, I don't know. But they weren't telling her what she wanted to hear. So she comes into court and we get, I'm on my side with my attorney. She's on the other side with her child. I say child, she's probably 40, 50-year-old child, but nevertheless. And then they start screaming at the judge, and this is the interesting part. So I am a very amicable. I'm willing to do absolutely anything. Like I said, I'll even own or finance it. I'll buy her half. I'll sell her my half. I was absolutely amicable to do anything. Well, then she starts screaming at the attorney. She says, Your Honor, we found out something about Scott Jelinek. And I'm like, oh God, what did they find out about me, right? And so the judge is like, yeah. And she goes, he's an equity swiper. And I was like, I never even heard that term before. Actually, I Googled it when I left, and that term doesn't exist. There's equity stripping, equity, I don't know, skimming, but I've never heard of an equity swiper. And anyway, so the judge more or less dismissed her, and we proceeded with our trial. And this is the thing: she didn't get any less than she ever had. She was willed half the house. She still owned half the house. When it sold, she got half the money, right? But she was acting like somehow she was being wronged. Well, if I didn't own that half, her sister who sold it to us was getting the other half. Either way, it was not going to her, right? She was never involved with that other half of the property. So anyway, so we proceeded then through court. The judge ruled. And actually, this is where it worked out a little bit in my favor. The judge ruled basically he was going to hire a special, what do they call it, a special commissioner to facilitate the sale. So I couldn't be involved. Nobody can be involved. We couldn't pick the agent. We couldn't pick the title company. Nothing at all. They got an independent appraisal. However, because she signed a contract with me previously, the judge ordered that I would get either the contract amount, which I believe was $155,000. Yeah, $155,000 or 50% of the proceeds, whichever was greater. So that was a big thing there, because otherwise, we would have sold for less and I would have gotten less. This way I was getting the same amount regardless what it sold for because of the shenanigans that was pulled. So it ended up being listed on the market, and it was probably on the market. It was on the market for a while, but my guess is, and again, I'm not involved at all, my guess is it was on the market for so long because the person occupying the property was not being amicable. The listing had no interior photos. My guess is, and this is just a guess, my guess is the buyers were not even able to get inside to see it, so they had to buy blind. So what happens if you buy in blind? Your price goes down. And it wasn't an issue for me because I'm like, hey, I'm getting paid the same regardless, right? I was getting my 155. If it sold for 350, 330, I was getting 155, and if it sold for 200, I was getting 155. So her being difficult was only costing her money, right? I was getting the same. So it stayed on the market for a little bit, finally got a contract, and it closed. And so then just today I was notified this special commissioner had to wire the money to my attorney, and I picked up a check from my attorney. So I got $155,400, which seems really good. And I guess it is good if you just look at it as a return. However, in the whole scheme of things, this is a year and a half. So normally we do deals, if I'm laying out money, we do deals and it's 2 months, 3 months, you get your money back. This is a year and a half later. Yes, good return, but not what was anticipated. So 2 things I wanted to tell you. One of them is I was explaining this whole story to a friend of mine after we got out of court. Actually, I told my whole coaching group about it. And one of them sent me this shirt, as you can see, that says Equity Swiper. So no, I don't normally wear a shirt that says Equity Swiper, but I wore it again today for you guys because I knew I was doing this video. So that isn't even a real term. I Googled it. That doesn't exist. There's no such thing as an equity swiper. Nevertheless, the thing I wanted to really share with you, especially if you're a real estate investor, obviously you're a real estate investor if you're watching this, what I really wanted to share with you is that this is an option. I never knew it was an option. I've heard of it one other time since this, or another friend of mine called me and had a situation where there was 2 partners and one partner sold him his half. So I've been buying houses for 31 years and I have never come across, or maybe I was blind to it thinking it wasn't possible. I've never come across a situation where you can buy half a house. However, now I know that is in fact a possibility. It is in fact an option. And so it's something to be vigilant of. You might be able to get yourself a deal. And I'm going to give you, for instance, an inheritance situation. Let's say there's 5 heirs, right? Or 4 heirs, whatever it is, it doesn't matter. And 1 or 2 of them want to sell and 1 or 2 of them don't. They may not want to end up taking their other siblings to court to force them so that they can get their money, especially if one's living in it. The one who's living in it is never going to want to sell because they're living for free, right? So there is still an opportunity if you're willing to play the long game. Again, it could be a year and a half, could be longer. If you're willing to play the long game where you lay out money and you buy out 1 heir, 2 heirs, whatever, and then still wait out the process, your money is more or less in the bank. You're just not getting it until such a time as they either buy from you or you buy from them or a judge would order the sale. There's also situations that we come across with partners where one partner wants to sell and one doesn't. In my head, I always thought those were dead deals. And now I realize it's not dead. We have to buy deeply, deeply, deeply discounted, obviously, because who knows what we'll get and when we'll get it, right? But it doesn't mean it's a dead deal. The deal can still be on the table. And so I wanted to share it because this is something new to me, and I'm guessing probably new to most people, and you may have done it already, you might not have, where you can actually buy half a house. And so whenever I have a new experience, I love to share the new experience so that somebody else can benefit from it without having to go through the trial and error and figure it out as you go. So that's all I wanted to share with you guys today. Again, I wanted to show off my Equity Striper shirt. This was a gift, and let you guys know exactly that it is possible. You can buy half a house and how that process goes. And although it may take you a year or two or longer, I don't know what could have happened if the judge ruled for more continuances. But in the end, you still own half that property, and that's not going to go away. Thank you for watching, and have an absolutely fantastic day.